How did Israel not see this attack coming? Let's talk intelligence. An intelligence organization is comprised of essentially two things. The first is some means to gather information, and the next is people. And humans are prone to make mistakes. Almost everybody has pitfalls in their thinking, biases, logical fallacies that they make use of. These things are well studied in psychology. We know they exist, and that's why things like critical thinking classes are so vital for intelligence professionals. Now, throughout history, gathering enough information has always been an issue. But now, most intelligence organizations have almost an overabundance of information. When somebody is actually doing intelligence, they will have biases inherent in them based on where they've lived, how they've grown up, the culture they're in. So, for example, the U.S. pretty wildly overestimated Russia in this conflict with Ukraine. And it's my assessment that the people doing those assessments, the people conducting that intelligence, weighted more heavily how many tanks and people and artillery pieces and the quantifiable things that Russia had. And they very clearly didn't correctly weight or put enough emphasis on the professionalism of the troops, their willingness to fight, things of that nature. And it's very likely that the individuals conducting intelligence in regard to Israel and Palestine made similar mistakes. A U.S. analyst looking through the lens of a U.S. military is going to have in the back of their mind our troops and how they operate. In addition to having an abundance of resources and incredibly advanced weaponry and technology and equipment, the U.S. has a professional military. It is never a question of the willingness to fight for a U.S. service member. Now, the morale of a military ebbs and flows. There's no way to get around that. It just will. But at the end of the day, if a U.S. service member is told to go somewhere and do something, through force or finesse, we're going to make that happen. This clearly is not the case with Russia. Now, I'm boiling this down to very few factors, okay? When you're talking about military conflicts and geopolitics, anybody that tells you that they can for sure give you a 100% answer on pretty much anything is either the greatest expert of all time or an arrogant fool. There's just too many factors to account for. In addition to that, people tend to look at historical data to try and figure out what a nation or an organization will do. And that's great until it's not. Nothing like Pearl Harbor, for example, had ever happened to the U.S. until it did. So anybody looking at historical data wouldn't have been able to anticipate that, or not effectively at least. And again, this is probably why we saw an underestimation of the Palestinian forces in regard to this now conflict with Israel and Palestine.